The grand lobby of Sterling Enterprises shimmered under golden chandeliers. It was the company's 20th anniversary, a night of glittering dresses, polished shoes, and the soft murmur of success. Laughter echoed between marble walls as waiters moved elegantly through the crowd with trays of champagne. At the far end of the hall stood a sleek black piano, untouched but gleaming under the lights. Clara Sterling, the young CEO, stood beside it, confident, radiant, every inch the picture of modern power. Her glass sparkled as she raised it. "You all know," she said with a teasing smile, "I adore Chopin. If anyone here can play Nocturne in E-flat major perfectly." She paused, letting the crowd lean in. "I'll marry them." The room burst into laughter. Someone called out, "Careful, Clara, you might get proposals." She grinned, enjoying the attention. Then from a quiet corner came a voice. "Would you really?" The laughter died instantly. Heads turned. Near the far wall stood David, the janitor, and silver-haired, in a worn uniform, holding a mop. He wasn't smiling. His tone was steady, almost curious. Clara blinked, surprised. "Excuse me?" David stepped forward, slow but sure. "Would you marry anyone who played it? Or just someone wearing a suit?" A nervous chuckle rippled through the room. Clara straightened her shoulders. "You play the piano?" David nodded. "Used to." She smirked, half amused, half intrigued. "Then maybe you should prove it, mister?" "David," he said simply. "Just David." He leaned the mop against the wall and walked toward the piano. The crowd parted, whispering. Someone muttered, "He's not serious." But David didn't stop. He ran his rough fingers gently over the piano's lid, tracing the smooth black surface as though it were something holy. Then he sat down, carefully adjusting the bench. The lights reflected in his tired eyes as he looked at the keys, not with fear, but with a strange tenderness, like greeting an old friend. Clara crossed her arms, still skeptical but oddly expectant. The chatter had faded. Every eye was on him. David took a breath, deep and slow. His hands hovered over the keys. The air in the lobby seemed to tighten, waiting. Even the faint music from the speakers had stopped. For a moment there was nothing but silence. Clara felt something stir inside her. Curiosity, maybe, or unease. It was as if everyone suddenly realized this wasn't a joke. David's fingers lowered slightly, brushing the first key without pressing it. He closed his eyes. And just before the first note touched the air, the crowd leaned forward. Something was about to happen. Something that would silence them all. To be continued. The lobby was still, the kind of silence that hums inside the ears. David adjusted the piano bench. His blue janitor's uniform a strange contrast against the shining black wood. The guests watched, uncertain whether to laugh or pity him. Clara leaned back, her champagne untouched. A flicker of unease crossed her face. Something about the old man's calm made her heart beat faster. Then came the first note. Soft, pure, a whisper that floated upward like breath. Another followed. Then another. Fragile beads of sound forming Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Conversation died instantly. The melody shimmered through the hall, delicate yet certain. Each note seemed to tell a story of years lived quietly, of pain worn smooth by time. The crowd stood transfixed. David's hands, calloused from mops and buckets, moved with unexpected grace. His body swayed slightly, lost inside the music. The sound filled every corner of the room until even the chandeliers seemed to listen. Clara felt her throat tighten. She had heard virtuosos before, yet none of them had played like this, raw human trembling. The room around her blurred. For a moment she was not the CEO surrounded by wealth. She was simply a woman hearing truth. David closed his eyes. In his mind he wasn't in this marble hall. He was home again beside his wife, Elena. She used to hum the same nocturne, laughing when she missed a note. "Music isn't about perfection," she'd say. "It's about honesty." He could almost see her sitting next to him, smiling, the light on her face soft and golden. He felt her hand guiding his. And then she was gone again, leaving only the melody and his memory. The music deepened, grew slower, like a heartbeat fading. A tear slipped down David's cheek. Around him, men and women in expensive suits stood motionless, their arrogance dissolving into awe. Clara's vision blurred. She remembered her childhood piano lessons, the frustration, the way she'd quit when business became her world. She had forgotten how music could make people feel small and infinite all at once. The last notes drifted upward, fragile as glass, then disappeared. Silence. No one clapped. No one breathed. The city lights outside flickered through the glass doors, and for a long heartbeat the world stood still. David lifted his hands from the keys and whispered, "My wife used to play it before she passed. I clean floors now, but I still remember her." The words fell softly, yet they echoed louder than applause. Clara lowered her gaze. The party was over, but something far greater had just begun. To be continued. The next morning, the grand lobby was empty. The decorations were gone, the music silent, the marble floors gleaming. David was there, as always, with his mop and bucket, quietly cleaning the aftermath of other people's celebrations. The world had already moved on, except Clara Sterling. She hadn't slept much. The melody still haunted her, looping in her mind like a ghost she couldn't forget. She had grown up in privilege, surrounded by tutors and luxury, but not once had she heard truth come out of a piano like that. What that janitor did wasn't just play, he spoke through music. She walked into the lobby, her heels echoing across the floor. David looked up from his work, startled. "Morning, ma'am," he said politely as if last night had never happened. Clara smiled faintly. "You silenced a room full of millionaires, David." He chuckled softly. "Guess music still has a little power left in it." She hesitated, folding her hands. "You never told anyone you could play." He shrugged. "No one ever asked. Besides, some things are better kept between you and the past." Clara's eyes softened. "You know," she said, stepping closer. "I meant what I said last night about marriage." David looked up, eyebrows raised, and she laughed. "Not literally," she added, "but I did mean that I respect greatness when I see it." He smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening. "Greatness?" he repeated. "Ma'am, I'm just a man who cleans floors." She shook her head. "No, you're a man who reminded us what beauty sounds like." For a long moment, they just stood there. Two people from opposite worlds, connected by a single song. Finally, Clara spoke again, her tone softer. "I have an offer. We're opening a new community center downtown, with a music program for underprivileged kids. I'd like you to run it." David blinked. "Me? I don't have fancy degrees." "You don't need them," she said gently. "You have something better, soul." He stared at her, emotion flickering behind his eyes. After a moment, he nodded slowly. "I'd be honored," he said, "but I'll still clean up after myself." They both laughed quietly, the sound echoing softly in the empty hall. Clara turned to leave but paused. "David," she said, glancing back, "thank you for reminding me why I fell in love with music in the first place." David looked at the piano in the distance, a faint smile on his lips. "Music reminds us all who we are, ma'am, even when we forget." As she left, David placed his hand on the piano one last time, pressing a single key, a soft note that faded into the morning light. The janitor's song was over, but its echo would live forever.